Did you have a theme or?
No, I didn't have anything. I was trying to figure it out.
I know. What were we talking about yesterday? We were talking about
Small groups, cell groups, different things like that.
Let's just connect from there to the fellowship.
To a
I
fellowship.
mean, we already talked about the importance of fellowshipping with one another. Having people in your life, in your Christian life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you're struggling, you're going through things, and how the devil burns them not to talk to each other.
You know what?
Because
I think we should talk about.
We're afraid people are gonna think different of us.
Yeah.
And I think that reason is because like a lot of people don't have a clear definition of what grace is.
Huh?
A clear definition of what grace is. Like we don't give people grace. We don't look.
I guess what do you mean by that?
Okay. So for me, grace and forgiveness, they work to like hand in hand. Right? It's like when we come to church, like a lot of times, like a lot of people say, hey, well, what do the pastor think about this? And what do how do the pastor, it's like a lot of people, they lean more on like what the pastor think and say instead of like, having their own relationship with God. And by them having their own relationship with God, you know what, you'll be able to learn how to be able to handle. Like if somebody come to you and say, hey, look, like me and you are like all of us, like, right? If somebody was to come to us in the church and say, hey, like, I'm having a problem with drinking. Mm-hmm. I'm having this issue with drinking, like even if it was me, like somebody like just say me, like, right. Yeah. I'm having a problem. Like I know how you two will handle it. It would be gracefully. Mm-hmm. It would be with like, love and care and tender, you know what I mean? Like that. But other people in the church, that just kind of go out the window because they're like, oh, well, I expect you. You know what I'm saying? Like people have expectations. They like, I expect, you're supposed to be the leader. You're not supposed to fall.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But we don't, to me, it's like we don't really do that. Like, we don't have enough. I don't know if I'm using the right word. I'm saying grace, but I don't know if I'm using the correct word.
I've always said that in the military, a regular military, they have that motto, no man left behind.
Yeah.
And they go, and then they say, once they're in the military and war, they've been in war and all that, they say, we're brothers, my brother to the right, to the left, and they protect each other. Yeah. And in Christianity, instead of helping one another, we kick each other more instead of, we're brothers in war. We're brothers in this Christian battle. We're supposed to help one another, regardless if you fall or you fail. And that's why I said in the fellowship, how many of you would still be friends with me if I wasn't the pastor no more?
Yeah, exactly.
Because most people are friends because of my title.
Yep.
Well, I think.
But once that title go away,
then what? Right. Then what?
Well, I think.
Are we on already?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess part of the thing with it is, I guess it is grace. It's also, I don't know. I think we as human beings, there's a certain sanctity, I guess, or to the different positions and different things, but it's still human beings running it. I guess that's kind of the hard part, right? It's like, how do you kind of balance that grace and empathy with everything else?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a right way. I think when you look at Christ, it was kind of interesting. I think Jesus, when he interacted with everyone, I think he showed them grace. But at the same time, there was times, like I always found it hard with the Pharisees. I felt like he showed them grace at times, but then they were the same ones he called them vipers.
Yeah.
And so it was a balance, I guess, of grace and mercy.
Why do you think he called them vipers, though? I mean, you think because like
I think the ones
they knew, you know what I'm saying? Like
I
there
don't
was certain
think he-
things that they.
I don't think he called all of them vipers, and I think that's where it gets misconstrued. I think he was speaking to the ones that were there in that context, and it was because I think there were certain ones who, in their heart, they knew the truth and they knew they were abusing it. There was some like Paul, who Paul didn't know the truth, but I don't think he was abusing it. I think Paul truly wanted to know God.
Yeah.
But he just had the wrong path of trying to know God. And so I don't think he was truly abusing it. Like he really thought Christianity was a sin, or he thought it was something that was coming against the God that he knew, and he couldn't connect it. Versus I think there was others who knew what Christ was saying was the truth, and he was looking at it more as they were looking at it more as like, oh no, he's going to destroy something that we've built for our own personal use and things of that sort. So I think that's where the weird balance is. Now, I don't know which ones were or not, because like you have the Nicodemuses and the others who truly, when they started seeing Christ and they started seeing the signs and stuff, they started coming to it. I think that's always the hard part of the church, right? And I think that's where we have to remind ourselves, like, and no matter whether you're a leadership or you're just a member or whatever, or you're just new to a church, that we're all sinners and we're always going to be sinners. Like, we're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. I mean, there's consequences for our mistakes. There's consequences for our sins and things of that sort.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take us away from the grace of God. And to your point, there's kind of that whole helping each other out during that time.
First, welcome the people, no?
No, I mean, we already started. You can just go. I mean,
When my kids were growing up, I would always tell them, look, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to warn you and all this. But once the belt is in my hand, there's no grace, there's no mercy. That's it. You're going to get spanked. But after I warned them so many times, see, because grace means that, the word grace means that we don't do nothing for our salvation. God does everything. His grace is upon us.
Right.
You know. But grace is not a license for you to go and do what you want to do. Say, okay, you know, I'm going to go and party because God's going to forgive me. No, it's there because he knows that you might go to a party with no intentions of drinking or doing anything, whatever. You know, whatever you think is your sin, you know. And then all of a sudden, boom, you fall, you know. And that's why when I would go and witness to my friends in the drug connections and all that, I wouldn't stay that long. Not because I thought I was holy, because I didn't want to find out how much, you know.
It's because you knew yourself.
I didn't want to be tempted.
Of course.
You know, even though I, you know, I wanted to serve God.
yeah.
So I would just do drive-bys, hit and run, you know, and win because I didn't want to, you know. And I think that's where we get in trouble because, and then another, grace will not take away your consequences. We don't. It won't take away your consequences.
Let's go see.
You know, from what you did.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, grace is not going to take away the consequences of what you did. Like King David, God forgave King David. But what did he tell him? You know what? Your baby's going to die. And David pleaded with the Lord, fasted and everything.
And he still
You
died.
know, and still. But he got up satisfied knowing what God had done and the grace upon his life. You know, and then his life, you know, what he had to pay throughout his life, you know.
Yeah.
You know, even though he had all the riches in the world, his family was messed up.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and that's why, you know, I mean, people, since I've been saved, Christians walk in eggshells. I'm
why?
a Christian now. I can't do this. I can't do that. Huh?
Why you think Christians walk on eggshells?
because
We're
they
worried-
start getting that.
You're worried about other Christians?
Right. And what, you know, and,
worried
and,
about-
and they think that if you fail once, see, one, because they don't see God as a father. They see God as a God.
Mm-hmm.
And movies and all that have portrayed God as a God that's going to come and judge you, you know, instead of like a father, you know, like regular movies, you know. And God is a father. He's not going to, that's why Jesus gave the prodigal son the parable, because the father was waiting for the son.
I think the other thing is, I don't think we ever, or I don't know, maybe I'm making too general a statement. I feel like sometimes we struggle with understanding what sin actually is, and I think that's one of the harder things is really understanding what sin is, because I think when you look at it, it's I think we're trying to fix a couple of things. But I think the issue when we look at sin, like using that David as an example, that's where I was headed. Yeah, using David as the example, I think what's a hard part about it is the whole thing with the baby dying. I think we're good, man. We can just run with the 3 like that. I think we're good. It's all good. We'll make it work. We can always edit and cut things out or whatever. We'll figure it out. Where I was headed, like, what's interesting about that, and I think that's where we look at, we know the wages of sin is death. And we know that's a spiritual death. We know overall from human beings when sin came into this world, you know, part of the curse was that we were going to die or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't know if God's original plan that was Adam and Eve were going to live forever. It doesn't say that. Like, I don't know if that was the case or not. But we know death comes in. We know the wages of sin is death. As Paul speaks to it, it's a spiritual death and those other things. But I think the piece that we don't always understand is how those consequences work. Like with the one example of David and the Bathsheba and the baby dying, I don't know if that was nature and that was going to happen anyways, and God was informing him, hey, if you guys had never had this affair, this baby would have never come into this earth, and because this baby was meant to die because of that. Not that it was a cursed baby because he committed a sin.
Yeah.
And then if it was that, God was just saying it to that. And you see, the problem is sometimes we take that concept and then we apply it to everything. Well, I did this, so now it's a curse and this is going to happen. That's not the case. It's like with anything, sin is putting anything above God. Correct. And that comes from an inward thing, and that comes from a separation from God. What tends to happen when we separate from God, you know, and I'm trying to get to a point to make it relatable, but it's like we always say, like alcohol, you know, because the way our church was, that there was a lot of alcoholics and things like that. Alcohol was related to a sin, and you can have the debate if alcohol is a sin or not, but drinking something doesn't automatically give you cirrhosis of the liver.
Right.
Overindulging on it does that. It's the same thing with like
smoking cigarettes.
Having some sugar doesn't automatically give you diabetes.
Yeah.
Overindulging on it leads to diabetes.
Correct.
You see, but we don't understand that concept of sin. Our concept of sin is, oh my God, I screwed up. Now I got this.
Yeah.
And it's because you were abusing something. You know, I was listening to this guy talking about the he's a guy that studies the Bible and studies it from a Jewish standpoint. He was talking about kosher, not kosher, what's okay to eat and stuff like that. And he was talking about how, like, you know, even the Jews today, they look at it differently than you would see it in the Bible. The Bible called certain things permittable and unpermittable. And then when Christ was talking about clean and unclean, it wasn't about the permittable and unpermittable. It was talking about what was permittable, but even in the permittable, was it clean or unclean? And so he was going to this whole thing about how it's not good to eat. So, they were talking about like shellfish and certain things you're not supposed to eat and things like that.
What's that, like the book of Leviticus or something like that?
Yeah, they were going into that. And it wasn't that it was about a sin. It was about, when you start looking at it, it was saying, those things our body weren't meant for it. Right? So if God's inspiring it, and I'm not saying I enjoy eating shrimp. I'm still going to eat shrimp. Right? I'm not going to stop. But if the Lord made my body and he knew I wasn't supposed to eat that shrimp, and maybe that shrimp takes a couple of days off my life, that's my decision.
Yeah.
But it's not sin. And that's where I'm headed. Like, we don't always understand the fullness of sin and the impact and the things of that sort. And so what we do is when we put it as just, well, that's right and this is wrong.
Yeah.
And then we kind of chase it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's certain things in the Bible, because then my words could get misconstrued. And there's certain things in the Bible that are clearly right and wrong. Right. But that's one of the things that I think sometimes we struggle with as Christians is like, hey, we all have some type of addiction. Mm-hmm. Right? And
on some level or another, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we're going to slip. Sometimes things are going to happen, things like that. And that's the whole point of having a community that you can be around that says, hey, let me help you with this. Mm-hmm. Let me deal with you with this. It's like, again, using King David, like King David wasn't removed from his office. I don't know if he could have been or not, but no one went and said, oh, King David, he killed this guy. He had a kid with Bathsheba and all this stuff. No one went. Like Nathaniel corrects him, and he pays for his suffering and all those things. But there's never a whole thing that he's thrown out. Like Nathaniel still works with him. You see God still dealing with him on a consistent basis. And every time David screwed up, he always went back to the grace of God. And I think that's one of the things. Like I was listening to this guy, and sometimes when we look at that story, like we don't really fully go into it, and I'm not gonna do it justice. But when you go into it, it's not just David sleeping with Bathsheba, but the man Uriah, her husband, was one of David's 30 great warriors. Mm-hmm. And she was the granddaughter of one of David's right-hand man. So he was causing issues with family members who are close to his side. It wasn't like it was just some random woman he saw. Like, these are people in his inner circle.
Yeah. No, man. It's a domino effect.
And so, but you see these, like, again, you see these guys and you see all of that. And what I'm saying is sometimes we just see the surface of it instead of fully understanding, God had grace for David, but David also had to suffer because of his consequences. And it wasn't that God put that on him. And I think that's one of the things, like, with the relationship with God, and as we start going and you grow with it, and I'm rambling on a lot, so I feel like I'm going in circles. But
no, really, but I get you though.
But really, the thing is, like, I don't think, like, we think we sin and then God automatically says, "Here's your judgment," and that's not the way it is. No, exactly. It's like God's like, "That's what you want. Then I'm gonna let you.
Exactly.
I'm gonna let you do it.
Leave you over to it. Correct.
But guess what? All the stuff that comes with that is gonna come with it.
Right. Whether you like it or
whether
you don't like
it or not, and then you got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if someone has a kid out of wedlock, right? Is it done by the way that God wants it? No. But it doesn't mean that kid's a curse. It's like, okay, now that's part of life.
Yeah.
And you got to deal with that, whether you wanted to deal with it at that time or not. And that's part of it.
It's like even if a couple gets married and they have kids and then it doesn't work out. Those kids are not in fault if that relationship didn't work or not.
Yeah.
They're still a father and a mother to those kids.
Yeah.
And like you said about sin, to me, sin is anything that separates you from the love of God. Mm-hmm. See? Disobedience can separate you from the love of God. I tell people, a lot of my sicknesses, I still have them because I'm disobedient. A lot of the things the doctor tells me that I have to do,
you don't do them.
I don't do them. So I'm going to pay the consequences. But human nature is always to blame somebody else.
But let's jump into that.
Instead of instead of taking responsibility for ourselves.
But let's jump into that concept there. So, like you said, because, and maybe I'm just nitpicking at the words, but I think you're right. It's just the explanation, because we always say sin. I think sin is something that separates us from God.
Yeah,
You said
I don't think the love of him. I think God is always going to love us.
God's still going to love us, but I think by what you're saying, I think the separation of the love of God, I think it's more of our love for God. The moment we start putting something above it, then that love becomes secondary.
Yeah.
It's not that God leaves. Like
God never leaves us.
No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. Because sometimes we'll make the statements, and I think the right statements. Like it does. Sin is anything that separates us from God, which is going to be His love. If God is love, it separates us from Him. But I think I think the way people look at it is, oh, God's separating from us. No, it's actually us separating ourselves from God.
Yeah,
God's always
course.
there. We're separating ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, we say it, but I don't think people always think of it that way. I think people think
it's just look.
I don't know. For me, growing up in the church, the way I looked at it when I would hear it,
I get it.
I would say, "Oh, I sinned, so God's going to run away from me."
Yeah, of course.
And God doesn't run away from you.
Yeah, no.
But that's our concept of it. When sometimes we think about it,
That's why a lot of Christians live miserable, because they're always living because they think they're obligated, and they think that if they do something wrong, they gotta whip themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and God forgives right away. You know, people don't forgive right away, but God forgives right away.
Of course.
But sometimes those consequences, because, you know, that's why Jesus had to die, because He fulfilled the law. Jesus was the only perfect human being, you know, / God, that was able to fulfill the whole law.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it was Paul that said, if you want to live by the law, you'll die by the law. Right?
Yeah.
And if you live by the grace of God, you know, God's grace is always there, you know, and it will always cover you, you know. But one thing the devil likes to do is bring condemnation. See, I always say there's two words in Christianity: conviction and condemnation. Conviction comes from God. God will convict you when you are doing something wrong that you're not supposed to be doing. You know, He will come, but He cannot force you to not do it. You have a choice to listen. The devil waits until you do it to condemn you.
I think that's where.
You know, but it's easy to blame God and not the devil.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like we look, we all have a choice. Okay. End of the day, all of us, we have a choice.
Yeah.
Okay. And ultimately, this is what I know to be true, is that God does not want to send you to hell. You choose to go to hell. It's like this. It's like, look, let's think about it like this. Okay. We live in our lives, right?
Yeah.
And we live our lives in hopes of one day being before the Creator, seeing Him, you know, learning, whatever the case may be, right? This is how we're living our life now on earth, right? Because we want to live further, you know, in eternity. So if you choose to live your life here on earth without knowing God, without having a relationship with Him, not even trying to have it, you know, then that's going to be your choice at the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, when you die at the end, right? Because you chose, that's what you chose to do. You chose to separate yourself from God here on earth. Think about it. We here now.
Yeah.
We got an opportunity now.
Yeah.
You know, so if you chose to did not take advantage of the opportunity while you here now, then you know what I'm saying? It's you got to think about it in that sense.
No, I agree, but I think that's what you learn. Like when you're growing up in Christianity, or you haven't gotten that far into the doctrines or understanding or that relationship with God, you start thinking that you sin, God runs away from you. And God doesn't run away from you. He's there. It's more of us pushing Him away. And that's one of the things I think is sometimes a concept lost. I was listening to this girl. I didn't listen to the whole podcast. I listened to a short version of it. And she grew up, she was probably my age, maybe younger. She grew up around the time. And I didn't agree with everything she was saying. But again, I don't know her life and I don't know the church she went to. But she was talking about like during Columbine. If you were in school during Columbine, you know, I think I was in high school at that time when Columbine happened.
Oh, wow.
And when Columbine happened, one of the things that a lot of churches and especially youth groups were going about, that there was that one girl who they asked her if she was a Christian and she said yes, and then they killed her and she died. And after a while, a lot of youth groups and churches were using that as you martyr for Christ. You're unashamed of the gospel, right? And it was interesting because for her, she said she had a concept for a while where she was like writing in her journal, like, I wish I could die for Christ, like literally die. Like she was hoping she was in a situation because she thought that's what she was supposed to be. Now, everyone interprets that a little different. I never thought about like, I hope I have the opportunity to stand in front of someone and I'm good. Like,
Of course, nobody.
That's a limited.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, I think people were trying to motivate people to be unashamed because not all of us are. There's going to be a small percentage of us that are ever standing in front of a execution style thing and have to proclaim if we're living for Christ or not. Like, even when you look at the early church, there was a lot of them, but there was a lot that didn't go through it, right? That they had to stand and be in part of that. I think what youth groups are trying to do is saying, hey, we're so worried about being made fun of by our friends and the school and things like that, and look at this girl. And those are extreme examples, right? And when you're a kid or you're a teenager, you're influenced by that. So I can't say what her thing is, but what I'm trying to get at is more of like, it's this understanding of God's grace, understanding of God's love, understanding of the relationship with him. Like, God's not telling us that we all have to find a situation where we need to go die to proclaim his name. It's merely about how do we even proclaim it when we're just around regular people, when we're around all these people.
It's like when David Wilkerson, first started working with the gang members and all that. And, everybody's seen the movie The Crossing the Switchblade, and when Nicky Cruz confronted him and told him he was going to cut him into 1,000 pieces, and David said, you know what, each piece is going to tell you that Jesus loves you, Nicky, and I do too.
Yeah.
And everybody, wanted to be just like David.
Yeah.
Whatever circumstance we're in life, God's going to prepare us.
Yeah.
And that's when we're supposed to either stand up for Christ or not stand up for Christ. It doesn't have to be a live or die situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's
when Benny's brother died, Steve, I've been after Steve since the day I got saved for him to come to God, right? And several times he came and I brought him in the house. He kicked and drugs and all that, but the gang kept on pulling him back, and several times we would talk, and he would always tell me, Joe, I feel God wants me to work with young people, because of the life that I live. I said, yeah, Steve, but the devil ain't gonna allow that. I said, it's your choice, and what I'm trying to say, the day they called me that he was dying, and I went over there, all I did is said, look, Steve, you know what you gotta do. I can't tell you if this is your last day or not. I can only tell you it's God's will. But if it is, you do what you gotta do with God. You have to ask for forgiveness, ask for forgiveness.
No.
And I believe, and he just went like this. So if he did ask sincerely, and he reconciled with God, I believe right then and there when he passed away, he made it to heaven. Not because, you didn't do what God called you to do, or, Now, if he would have been paralyzed or something, he might have lived with regrets that he didn't do what God called him to do.
No.
But we have choices.
No.
I always tell people, I do not use drugs or drink or whatever in my life. I'm talking about my life. Because I can't. Because, I'm a Christian, I can't. No, I choose not to. From the day I came to Christ, I choose not to do none of those stuff. Now, it wasn't easy to stop all those stuff. I struggled with a lot of those things, But I chose because I knew what they can do to me, where they can take me. Because they always take me to a dark place, those things. So I choose not to. you know. And I would always tell my family, I can do whatever I want. I choose not to, because I don't want to hurt God. I don't want to hurt my father. I don't want to disappoint him. He's not going to condemn me. Just like the prodigal son, the father was waiting for him. You know, that's what the story says. He was waiting for him. The father could have said, hey, I give you the inheritance. That's it. You blew it. Don't come back. But he was waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he came back, he never threw anything at his face.
No.
He loved him. You know, took care of him.
No.
I think, and even gave him the ring back or whatever you know, and did a big party for him.
No.
The one that was upset was the older brother, because he stayed back, and he said, I stayed here with you.
No.
And I was keep on working. I was doing this and that.
Yeah.
And you never threw me a party.
Yeah.
No.
You know. And the father says, you could have asked for one at any time.
Yeah.
And I would have given
Gave
it to you.
Yep.
Your brother was lost and he came back. You see? And that's where sometimes we don't understand the grace of God. God will always forgive us.
Yeah.
And you're right. The love of God doesn't separate from us. We separate from God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We separate our relationship.
Yep.
You know,
And I think-
it's like marriage.
Yeah.
Years back when I would read the paper, I would always find it weird when 50-year marriages, 75-year marriages would say, you know what, we're getting a divorce. And they would say, because we don't love each other no more. You know. And one of the things that you would find out that in their relationship, most of them, they weren't communicating no more. And through communication, you find out, you know, how much you care for each other, even if it's an argument or whatever.
Yeah.
And most marriages, you'll find out they go silent. They all go to one corner and that's it until it ends. And that's the same way sometimes we do with God. Instead of coming to God, you know what, God? I messed up. I did this wrong. I know. I feel the conviction. And God will forgive you right away, instantly.
Yeah.
We rather choose not to come to him because we think he's going to condemn us. God doesn't condemn, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the sin that condemns.
Yeah. But you know what
You
I
know.
think though, Pastor? I think that a lot of people need to, that's something that you have to know, but you have to learn it though. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
have to, it can't be something like, it's like when people come to church, right? Like I can remember like, for me personally, like I would always say like, oh no, I'm not going to go to church until I get myself together. And that's like, what does that mean?
No.
Get yourself together.
No.
Get yourself together how?
No.
And do what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it took a while for me to understand that no, you know what? You just come like you are and you let God just deal with
Yeah.
you
Well,
in the way that God can deal with you.
I think,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's because we complicate the whole what Christianity and the relationship with God is. At the end of the day, it's simply that it's a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff falls in.
Yep.
Like when we try to do all the other
Man,
things,
bro.
because at the end of the day, like even judgment, when we stand there and we judge, when God judges us, it's not so much that he's looking at our sins and all these other things. He's really looking and saying, did you have a relationship with my son and me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you have a relationship with me through my son?
Yeah.
And were you and you want to be with me? Whether
Yeah.
that's a short relationship or a
what's
long
your, what's
relationship.
Your, right. What are your
Like,
intentions?
To
right?
your point, like with that, there's tons of stories and example like the one that you're talking about, Benny's brother, where I don't know, again, if he sincerely at the end of his life said, hey, I really, you know what, it took me so many years to realize that I don't want to have a relationship without Christ, and I want to have that relationship with him. When he stands in front of God, God's going to say, you know what, I truly know in your heart. It took you longer than others, but it took you to the point that you realize that you want to have a relationship.
Your heart.
Yeah.
Your heart.
And then the opposite with others, where we don't want to have a relationship with God, or we don't, and he sees that, and when we go there, he says, well, you never wanted a relationship with me or my son, so why now?
Yeah.
And you see, and that's the thing, like we get lost in that, oh, he's gonna mark our sins, but it's really about the relationship. And when you start focusing on that, then you start getting into understanding who God is. And
there's that scripture that says, "You'll say to me, Lord, Lord."
Oh yes, in Matthew.
He said,
many would say,
"But you
Lord,
call me Lord, but I don't know
He'd say,
you."
I never knew you. Yep.
You see, he didn't say because of your sin. He said because I don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because you know what, we didn't maintain that relationship.
That's
with
a gold
God.
nugget.
Yeah.
You
He didn't
see?
say because of your sin.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, and when you don't get to know God, you see, one look, like in my life, my vision of a father or my interpretation of a father wasn't a good one. You know, my real dad was a asshole. You know,
You say that.
and
Well-
you can bleep that out.
well-
Jerk, whatever, and you know, and then when my mom got together with my stepdad, he was a drug addict, a criminal, and all that, and then you know in the Hispanics, you know, my grandfather and all them,
Uh-huh.
they never were one of those type of true fathers, you know. They were the hardcore fathers, you know.
Get up, go to
yeah.
work.
You know, you had to go to
Support
work, you
your
had to
family.
do this, and they
Yeah.
were gonna whip you if you didn't
Yeah.
do something, you know. So me and my real dad, we never really had a great relationship, never, you know. So when I came to Christ, it was hard for me to understand that God was my father, because I look at God the same way. Because even before, I was taught that God would sit in a throne with a whip, and anytime you did wrong,
Whack 'em.
he was gonna, you
Yeah.
know, that was my version of God.
Yeah.
But until I started having a relationship with God
Yeah.
and started knowing God
I
as
can
a
relate.
father,
I can relate to that.
you know, and he taught me what a true father was, you know, because I didn't want to learn how to be a father either. When they told me, Joe, you need to learn how to be a father, I got all pissed off. My pride came, what do you mean? I already got a kid. I'm a father. See, that was my mentality. Just the moment you have a kid, you're a father. But you're not. Anybody can have a kid. Raising, loving, supporting that kid. That's a father. You might not be raising that kid might not be your blood related, but if you raise them, you love them, you care for them, hey, you're a father, you're a mother to that kid. You could be the cousin, the aunt, a friend, whatever, you know, or married into a family with somebody that already had kids. But if you love those kids and you nurture those kids and you take care of those kids, you're their true mother and father. Not because they're blood related.
Yeah.
And that's how God is with us. He's our father. And it takes time to understand that, you know. And a lot of Christians, like we were talking yesterday about the Bible studies that we want to start. I forgot the name of it, but
Connect groups.
huh?
Like connect groups.
Yeah. You know, then they don't get doctrinated, and then they start listening to all kinds of people. And in reality, in the world we live now, and even before, there's truth and there's false. And if you don't know your word, you don't allow God to interpret the word to you, it's so easy to go and follow what's wrong.
Yeah.
You know. But you have to, again, you have to be a student yourself on the word of God, not just believe anybody. Just like us right now, we're talking. You don't have to believe us.
Yeah.
You have to allow God to show you if what we're saying is right or we're saying is wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why it's important to have that vulnerability and that fellowship and that group going, because
Yeah.
you can have these discussions, because sometimes you're going to have a certain thought of the way God is, and then you have that conversation and you have others that encourage you and do other things. And so you got to just kind of, I think that's why it's important to have that, right? I think a lot of times we misconstrue what fellowship is. We think it's just getting together, have fun, and have a meal, but it's really about coming together, having these conversations, whether it's with food or not, that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of, you know, because sometimes that's the way we have to talk with each other. Like, I may have a certain thought of the way I think God is, and you may have another, and it may help me see it in a different way. And so that's why it's important that we have those conversations. I think with that said, we'll wrap up. Hit
Yep.
the like and subscribe button, and
Deuces.
keep in touch, and we'll keep you updated.